When my stepfather, Michael, suggested we take a road trip together, I honestly thought he was joking. We barely spoke beyond polite greetings at dinner, and even those conversations felt forced. My name is Emily Carter, and for most of my teenage years, Michael was just the man my mother married after my real father passed away. He wasn't cruel or loud or demanding. In many ways, that almost made things harder. He stayed quiet, kept his distance, and never tried to replace anyone. But that also meant there was an invisible wall between us that neither of us knew how to cross. My mom had been encouraging us to spend more time together. She said she could feel the tension in the house, not anger exactly, but unresolved silence. Michael worked long hours as a civil engineer, and I spent most of my time either at school, with friends, or locked in my room listening to music. We coexisted, but we didn't connect. The road trip idea came up one evening when my mom was visiting her sister in Ohio. Michael and I were sitting at opposite ends of the kitchen table, eating reheated pasta in silence. Out of nowhere, he cleared his throat and said he needed to drive to Arizona for a work-related conference, and that he thought it might be good if I came along. He said it casually, like he was offering a ride to the grocery store. I stared at him, fork frozen midair, unsure how to respond. I wanted to say no. The idea of spending days alone in a car with someone I barely spoke to sounded exhausting. But something in his voice wasn't demanding or hopeful. It was careful, almost nervous. After a long pause, I shrugged and said I'd think about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Part of me felt curious. Another part felt guilty for always pushing him away. By morning, I agreed to go. We left before sunrise 2 days later. The sky was still dark blue, and the world felt quiet in a way it never did during my normal routine. Michael packed snacks, checked the car twice, and handed me control of the music without comment. The first few hours passed with nothing but the sound of the road and low music playing in the background. I stared out the window, watching towns blur into open fields. Somewhere in New Mexico, the silence finally broke. Michael asked about my school, not in a forced way, but like he genuinely wanted to know. I answered briefly at first, then more openly as the miles passed. He listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, never rushing me. That alone surprised me. I wasn't used to adults listening without trying to fix things. Later that afternoon, we stopped at a small roadside diner. It had cracked leather booths and handwritten menus. Over burgers and milkshakes, Michael told me about his childhood. He talked about growing up in a small town, losing his own father young, and learning early how to be independent. He admitted he never knew how to step into someone else's family without feeling like he was intruding. That was the first time I realized his distance wasn't rejection. It was uncertainty. As the days passed, the road trip slowly transformed from awkward obligation into something meaningful. We laughed when we got lost outside Flagstaff. We shared stories about my mom that neither of us had ever talked about before. One evening, parked near a quiet desert overlook, Michael confessed he was afraid of doing the wrong thing with me. He said he didn't want to push too hard or disappear completely, and he often felt stuck between the two. I told him I was afraid too. Afraid that caring would somehow mean forgetting my real father, or betraying memories I wasn't ready to let go of. Saying it out loud felt like lifting a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying. Michael didn't respond with advice. He just said he understood, and that there was room in life for more than one kind of love. By the time we reached Arizona, the tension that once filled every shared space between us was gone. In its place was something quieter and stronger. Respect, trust, understanding. We didn't suddenly become best friends or erase years of distance, but we built a bridge where there had only been silence. On the drive home, I noticed small things. The way Michael checked if I was comfortable before turning the radio up. The way I asked him questions without feeling obligated. We weren't forcing anything anymore. When we pulled into our driveway days later, my mom came outside smiling, sensing immediately that something had changed. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. The way Michael and I exchanged a look said everything. That road trip didn't change our relationship overnight, but it changed its direction forever. I stopped seeing Michael as just someone who existed in my life, and started seeing him as someone who chose to be there. And he stopped seeing me as a responsibility he might mishandle, and started seeing me as a person he could walk beside. Sometimes healing doesn't come from big speeches or dramatic moments. Sometimes it comes from shared miles, honest words, and the courage to sit in silence until it feels safe enough to speak.